Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to another ArchCast special, where we have a very special guest today, Mr. Blaine Lee Pardo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very grateful that you could come to talk to us today. You're a busy man. You're a very prolific writer, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been keeping very busy the last few years, really. I retired from the corporate world to write full time about 3 years ago. So I've been cranking books right and left. I think I got three or four that are coming out this year still.
Nice. You're certainly keeping busy then, yeah.
Yes, yes. Not as busy as I used to be in certain areas, but that's changing too. So I've been engaged in talks with a number of different publishers, and it's been very interesting. There's some great opportunities out there.
That is genuinely good to hear because, as many of you watching this know, you were cancelled recently for a series of mostly spurious accusations, as far as I could tell, from Battletech or Catalyst Games, which you've been a fan of for quite some time.
Yeah, I've been writing for Battletech for 37 years.
Jesus.
I was one of the contributors to the first technical readout, 3025, when that came out. And I've been writing Battletech for a long time. I've done, was it 20 some novels or novellas, 25 of the source books. I've contributed to a number of the rules uh, that are out there, etc. So, yeah, I've had an active role in Battletech, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've actually been looking up some of your work on Goodreads because one of the things I did when I heard about your cancellation, I actually went on Amazon and picked up a couple of your books because I've always been wanting to get into Battletech. I've just never had the time. So this will be a wonderful trigger for me.
It's a lot of fun. I love the universe. The lore of the universe, I think, is really well done. And there's a handful of really good authors that write for BattleTech that have been doing it for a long time. Some of the new authors are coming up are good. Some I'm still trying to wrap my hands around. But yeah, I'm still a fan of BattleTech despite being canceled. I think a lot of people think I've vindictive or that I'm bitter about it. I want no ill will towards BattleTech. I think it's a great franchise. I will miss being able to play in like national tournaments and things along those lines simply because I don't want to cause any controversy by being there. But I enjoy BattleTech and I will be playing it in my game room with my friends, and I will continue to be a fan of BattleTech. I'm just not going to be writing BattleTech.
That is so stupid too. I hate the fact that you have to take that into consideration. Like you can't go to a tournament for the setting you love because there might be people out there who'll take offense at this. Like it is such a ridiculous thing.
It really is. And I hate having to be that way, but I used to look forward at Gen Con every year. They did a Masters and Minions tournament, and there's no way at this point that I can't go in good faith and do that and help promote the game when it's a game series franchise that has essentially banned me. And
No,
that
yeah.
that that's kind of that's it's a quandary. I wish I could. I really can't. It's a bit of a problem, and I have to worry about some of these crazy people that are out here on the internet. I had one person threaten my life on multiple occasions, and I had to get a court order to restrict that person's access to me. And that person is still kind of plotting and scheming stuff I've seen online of, you know, confronting me at a book signing and throwing a shake at me or slashing my car tires, etc. So there's a group of them out there that are a little bit radicalized, and I get it. They don't like my politics, and they don't like the fact that I'm vocal about it. That doesn't give them the right to do the things they've done, which are really kind of a threat to me and to my wife. And I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I have to worry about stuff like that.
That's probably a good idea. I mean, it's you talk about radicalization, and it is a genuine problem that has gotten worse and worse. Like in your case too, you have a long-term stalker, this Faith Goldie person, who was directly the reason why you were cancelled by Catalyst Games Labs, as they themselves told you.
Yeah, they made it very clear when Lauren called me, the first thing he said is, "This is about your ongoing feud with Faith." I said, I'm not feuding with Faith. Faith is feuding against me and is online daily saying stuff about me. But I'm not feeding that fire. I'd written one column where I referenced Faith for a conservative online website, and I did one interview about online stalkers, and the host of that show is also the target of this. And ironically, Faith started stalking that person as a result of that, to the point where that person asked me, "Can you give me that Faith's actual identity, etc., because I need to pass it on to law enforcement if this continues." And so we're dealing with someone who's a serial stalker, who is clearly obsessed with me and what I do, to the point where you do have to worry about that. But that was cited as one of the reasons that, primary reasons that Catalyst wanted to sever my relationship. They also referenced, my online media presence. And, Lauren said he took a number of my tweets and posts and Facebook out of context, his words, not mine, and said he, showed those to people and they were offended by what they had seen. They were shocked that I had written them. And I said, "Well, you're taking things out of context. I could take some of his books, go through and cull sentences or cull lines out of it, post them online and say, this is what Lauren said, and they would be deemed offensive." And he said, "Well, that's how the internet works." And I'm like, "Well, but you're a publishing company. Context is everything. So, why don't you just tell these people you're going to ignore all of this?" That's not the course they decided to go down. They've decided to side with the radicals, and that's fine. That's a business decision on their part.
Well, you're a lot more forgiving than I am in that case.
Oh, I'm not forgiving, and I'm definitely not forgetting. It's just getting emotional about it doesn't change the situation for me, unfortunately. I'm bitter about it and I'm mad about it, but I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of hearing me whine about it. I'm going to move ahead and just be successful. And they've won this great battle, and all they've done is deny fans a bunch of fiction that I had done, ready to go. Stuff that was through edit, where artwork was done on it. All the publisher had to do is hit the button to say publish, and it would have gone out to the fans. That stuff is all dead and dead forever. So what have they really accomplished? All they did was deny fans who didn't care about my politics or who agreed with my politics that, they're never going to get to see what, was going to be those stories. And, congratulations, that's censorship. And I'm against censorship in any form, be it on the right or the left. It's just crazy to do that. And what have you really accomplished? Nothing. I'm still writing. I'm still producing content. You can't make me go away as a result of all of this.
That's the only way you can demonstrate to them that they can't win. Got to stay
No,
in.
no. Well, and we've seen this in comic books, the whole comic gate fiasco that's been going down, etc. That, people are like, let's shove identity politics into this. Let's check off boxes that, for diversity and inclusiveness, and let's pander to that crowd. And I understand that, those are business decisions. But when you do that, you actually alienate another portion of the crowd. And that was one of the things Lauren said when he talked to me, the president of Catalyst, is he said, "You're alienating half of my audience." And I said, wait. My book is selling. My last book, which had come out in February at that point, and it was only 3 weeks in, I said, "My book is selling. I can see it online, the same as my other books. The ratings for it are within statistically the exact same as my other book. So where is the outrage?" And he said, well, sales don't matter. And I was like, you're
Wow.
running a business. Sales do matter. And, and it clicked on me afterwards. I'm like, the only people being alienated here are his conservative, fans and his conservative customers who are basically being told, look, we're only going to keep people who write with political views we approve of, and that's it. And that bothered me a lot. And I know Catalyst has made statements to the effect of this wasn't political. If you look at some of their authors, pull up their Twitter feeds, pull up their Facebook feeds. I mean, I've got one guy, I've got 21 pages of his posts that are vile, offensive, and everything else. He wants to tear down statues of Lincoln and Washington. He's against Mount Rushmore. He wants to defund the police. He's pro Antifa. He's all these things. He's not being let go. I am. So, that part, I don't swallow that it wasn't my politics. It was my politics. I get it. Again, it's their company, their choice. They get to make a decision with that, and I'm going to make my decision and just be successful going forward. So, the fans are the ones that lose in this. And Lauren promised to tell the fans what he was going to do and never did. And I got tired of getting emails from people going, so when's your next book coming out? And I don't have an answer to that. The answer was I got canceled.
And that's good that you have that chin up attitude, because those people feed off of your negativity. So the fact that you're looking forward is a very good thing.
All they have is their hate and their rage. And, they're still, I kind of thought, there was a part of me that thought once they won, they would kind of wind down. Now they're attacking other fans who support me. They go after people online who go, hey, I don't think that's right. They go, oh no, you're wrong. You're one of the racists and one of the transphobe people that, support Blaine Pardo. And, they attack the other fans. And those are the people that Lauren has sided with. And I told him very flat out, I said, you are literally taking the side of the person who threatened the life of your best-selling author. And I don't say that lightly. I was told by two people in Catalyst, Hour of the Wolf was the biggest selling book that Catalyst has ever had. So, and that may have changed from the time I was told, but, literally he's siding with the stalker in this case and is doing exactly what the stalker wanted. And so, that's the kind of people that Catalyst wants to cultivate for their audience. And if that's the case, well then, so be it. I'm not, that they have to live with the consequences of their decisions, and I'm going to move on with the consequences of their decisions.
And we're gonna take our wallets someplace else, because that kind of behavior is it's not worth supporting. I like Battletech too, but like I'm done with them after what they did to you, because there's no real reason for me to invest in them if they're gonna throw people to the wayside like that.
And I've heard that from a lot of fans, and this is what I say. Look, I love Battletech too. I hear what you're saying. I'm not advocating anybody do that. And the reason is, I'm not trying to screw over Catalyst. They screwed me over. It's real tempting for me to say, hey, everybody boycott them. I'm not going to go do that.
Of course.
I think everybody has to make their own decision where they spend their own money. And if that's your choice, I support you with that, because that's the best way for you to convey what you're going to convey. In the end, I don't think it's going to reverse their decision by any stretch. I've known Lauren for a number of years, and I just don't ever envision him stepping up and saying, oops, I made a mistake.
It's hard to fess up to when you own a mistake. It takes a lot of strength of will.
Yeah, I don't see that coming from him at any point, and I'm not saying that in a negative way of him, but I just don't see it. It's not his character, and I'm all about characters and good stories, and I just don't see that going that way. So, the fans are the ones that got denied. And if you're a conservative fan of Battletech, I'm sure you're feeling a bit miffed at this point. And, I think complaining to Catalyst doesn't do any good because they've made this decision. Um, Fanatics, according to what Lauren told me, and again, this is what he's told me, so I don't know how accurate it is. Fanatics was the one that told him, make this go away. Now, there's a lot of ways you could have made it go away. He chose this path. So, to me, if you want to get results, apparently you got to voice your opinion up to Fanatics. But whether they'll pay attention to something as minuscule as Battletech, I mean, they own Tops, they own the baseball cards, the basketball cards. They have so many big IPs that they own. I kind of feel that Battletech is this insignificant thing to them.
A little side project, if you will.
Yeah, well, they got it as part of a merger and acquisition. So, I don't know. You never know where that's going to go.
Yeah.
For a bit of clarity and context there too, Catalyst Games Labs, those are the ones who have the Battletech license at the moment. They are in turn owned by Tops, which is in turn owned by Fanatics. So it is Fanatics who's the big dog corporation here at the top.
That's correct. Yeah.
That is also probably a large part of the reason why, even if the people at Catalyst Games Labs for some reason thought that this was a wrong decision, they don't have any say in this, probably. Like, even if they thought it was, and I don't know if they did, this is corporate headquarters.
Yeah, they're not owned at all by Fanatics, but they license the product from them. So they have to pay attention to what Fanatics says. I believe me, I understand the relationships real well in terms of that. But at the same time, if you think about, and I'm going off what Lauren told me, which was, hey, Fanatics told us to make this go away. Well, why didn't you just tell the lefties that you're an entertainment company that produces content and the politics of your authors is irrelevant as long as it doesn't show up in the books?
Well,
if you
that's
do
a
that,
really interesting question. Because the answer is probably because it is their politics too, sadly. Because we've had this over in yeah, go on.
I think they struggle with that, and these people that are online 24/7 doing this stuff, this is their whole life. They exist to knock people down. I understand it. I get it. They're probably very insignificant people in the real world. I don't think these are big contributors to society. This is the only place they have a presence is online, and the only reason they have a presence is that they're screaming about something. Well, they screamed about me, and they screamed at the right level and the right loudness to create the illusion that they represented a majority. And I don't think that's really the case. But, again, I wouldn't have made the decisions that were being made. But, that was Catalyst's call.
At the very least, they were the ones who decided to go through with it. And, that's a question too. Like, make the problem go away. Probably that was interpreted as an order to make the problem, in this case you, go away. Because I hate the fact, like, what you're suggesting should be the correct approach, right? Simply say, okay, hey, we're a toy company, basically. We make plastic robots. Fuck off. We don't care. Politics, so long as it's not in our product, that's it. But it is a completely alien concept to today's corporate world. It is, like you said earlier, like 50% of our audience. That's what they believe, or a lot of them do believe. They look at Twitter and go, oh, hey, this huge part of our audience is incredibly progressive. We can't alienate them. Whereas in reality, as you also mentioned, the sales don't seem to waver at all. So you got to ask yourself, is this really true? Or is this the data ghost that's tricking them?
And the fact that they're listening to Twitter is the weird part.
Yeah, there's so many parts of this that are a weird story that, at some point, because I do write true crime books with my daughter, and her and I have been joking that we ought to do a book just on this, because it's just, it's a weird concept of here you got somebody who you knew was a stalker. This person, they gave this person, the first time they complained about me, they let this person, Faith, actually write a short story.
Yep. Which
And
was
I
an
told them at the
incredibly
time,
weak surrender.
yeah, and I told him at the time, I said, this is a huge mistake. This person is batshit crazy. And I said, this person's been stalking me online. They've tried to get me canceled with you. You know, they've stirred this pot, and now you're pandering to them. What I was told was, and I got this both, yeah, I got this from Lauren and I got it from the editor. The editor said, well, you got to remember, Blaine, it's a sausage fest here. And it's all guys writing military sci-fi. And this is a chance to get a woman to write. Well, you know, as it turned out, Faith isn't even a female. Faith is a 39-year-old guy. Faith isn't a nurse. Faith got fired from his big box store for issuing terroristic threats and harassing his boss. And he
Wow.
was pled guilty in court to issuing terroristic threats. He's on a 36-month probation. He is a criminal.
Hmm.
And when all this went down, you know, it was interesting because Lauren would call me and say, "So where are you at with this? Where, you know, he always opened with, where are you at? How come you're not moving forward with doing something with Faith?" And I was like, you know, once we found out Faith's identity, I passed that to Lauren. I said, "Well, you need to pull obviously this person's story down." He goes, "Well, that's more complicated. You know, it's already been published, but this person did sign their contract illegally. They didn't sign with their real name. So I'm probably just going to have a person re-sign this contract." And I was like, this person lied to everybody on the internet and got caught. And you gave them a job based on the fact that you thought they were a woman. So you were checking off a box. It had nothing to do with their actual skill in writing, their talent. It was, hey, this is a chance for us to pander to these people, and we're going to bring one of these women on board. Turns out it wasn't even a woman, um, wasn't a female at all. They brought this person in, and this person filled out a contract illegally. Just pull their damn story and explain it to people. This person lied to us, filled out their contract illegally, and we pulled their story. And his whole thing was, well, no, I don't want to do that. That's complicated. It's
It's
not
complicated.
complicated. You're a publishing company. You unpublish them. It's real simple.
I think the only complication there is they didn't want to.
Yes, and at the time, it didn't click with me, you know. And this is how stupid I was, to be honest with you. I trusted these guys because I've known these guys at Catalyst for years. I mean, easily 15, 20 years. And so from my perspective, I was like, okay, well, they're running their business. It's their call. You know, at the time, it should have been a red flag for me that, okay, these guys really don't have your back. You know, because they're essentially still pandering to somebody that they know threatened your life. But, you know, I let it go. And in retrospect, I should have been more vocal about it. You know, I'm just not that guy. You know, congratulations. What did you really accomplish here? You sided with somebody who's a complete fraud. And as a fraud, even today, this person still posts that they're, you know, they've adopted two twins, and I'm like, how could you adopt two twins? You have a protective order, and you're on probation, and you're not a woman, and you're not any of the things you claim to be. You didn't adopt two people. No adoption agency on the planet's going to hand you children. And if you handed you children, you wouldn't be on the internet for 8 hours a day if you had adopted twins. You know, I had two kids that were born years apart, and I have news for you. There were a lot of times I didn't get on the internet for days at a time.
That's the thing, right? So the whole complicated thing. This is an indication that the company is, as I kind of suspected, they are politically involved. This is their politics, and therefore, like I said with the sausage fest, like who the hell cares? This is an irrelevancy.
Hmm.
But that is the reason why they could cancel you, and why it was so complicated to unpublish a story written by a proven liar who doesn't even have a legal contract to show for the publication of that short story. It is all about the political view of it. And You mentioned the true crime part too. Like that would actually be a very interesting story because we've seen several incidents of this previously, years ago now. But there was the saga of Mattress Girl, who was a girl who claimed to have been raped, and it was proven later that she had had consensual sex with the person, and she had lied about the whole thing. And he was actually convicted initially because, well, her word mattered more than his.
It is from a true crime perspective, it's more of a study too of who are these people that are out on the internet and what are their actual backgrounds and what do they really do to try to take down people, and when they successfully do it, what does it really accomplish? In this case, really what it's handed Catalyst is a public relations problem now. And I don't, you know I get it. Lauren must have changed his mind and decided not to go public with this. He didn't convey that to me. But he made a decision and then didn't tell the fan community at all what he had done. So I don't know how he thought he was solving anything. And there's nothing in my nature, for anybody who actually knows me as a person, that you would ever think that I would be quiet about this. It was a matter of, it took me months to get Catalyst to pay me what they owed me. There was a lot of back and forth about contracts and stuff. There was stuff that it turns out that, a year ago that was published that I hadn't been paid for. So we had to go through and get all that aligned. And then I go through my records. It turns out Topps hadn't paid me for 2 years. And I wasn't going to go public with that until, you know, I had money in hand, obviously, because I'm pretty sure the royalty checks are going to be a little slow from this point forward. Uh, so, I had to deal with Topps Legal, and that took another 2.5 months to hammer through. Some of that involved Catalyst producing actual royalty reports that Topps said they didn't receive, and et cetera. So, this was a long, dragged out process, and once all that got put into place, it was a matter of when did I want to drop this and how. And I just decided, I picked a day on a calendar and said, let's go. Um, it's funny. The folks online that hate me are like, oh, you timed this to promote your book. And I'm like, guys, every 2 months I have a book coming out. I either have a book just about to come out or have a new book that's already been out for a month. The concept that this is somehow to propagate selling books is just ridiculous. Nobody would open themselves up to this level of scrutiny and abuse online, to try to sell 10 or 20 books. It's a stupid concept. But they're so irrational that they ascribe stories to this that just make no sense in the real world.
Well, again, it is their view. Like they are viewing the world in a way that is very different from ours. From their perspective, everything is under the lens to the point everything must be sinister. I remember, I think this was when you talked to Razorfist a while ago, when you mentioned that you took like a couple of weeks off posting anything on the internet, and yet again your stalker needed to comment on the fact that you weren't commenting.
Yeah, I did just an experiment. It took 2 weeks and it's like, I'm not going to post anything, and this person still just kept railing about me. And I was like, at that point, I remember talking to my wife. I'm like, this person's so obsessed with me that if I'm not communicating, they think that's a form of communication. And they they are feeding on that. And the stuff that this person puts up is so vile and it is so made up that it's ridiculous. It's just it just got to the point where it was like, I might as well post whatever I want because it doesn't matter. This person's unhinged, unable to control themselves, and is obsessed, clearly, with anything that I do. So I might as well just go out and be open about it at this stage.
They'll interpret your actions in the worst possible, most malicious light, regardless. So there's nothing to win from
Yeah.
being silent.
Yeah, so you might as well have whatever fun you want. I would say this, that's been the one thing that's been nice in the last few weeks. I haven't had to look over my shoulder and wonder, gee, is this going to have a negative reaction with a bunch of people? Because I know it's going to have a negative reaction with a bunch of people. It's going
Success.
to. So, I might as well post whatever the hell I want, say whatever the hell I want, write the things that I want to write. And, it doesn't matter. They've gotten everything they want. They got me canceled. But that's not enough now. Now they're screaming, well, Blaine shouldn't be doing podcasts and keep bringing this up. Well, I'm going to because it makes them look bad. So yeah, I'm going to bring it up a lot. And if they want to come on one of these things and have a debate and show their face, go for it. You can do that. But I don't think that's going to actually happen.
No. So, okay, we'll bring this over to a bit of a different topic as an expansion on this too, because there's some really interesting parts in this here. You've been working on a couple new books, as you mentioned. So, what are you working on now?
Well, right now. I'm halfway through book 5 of the Blue Dawn series. Blue Dawn is a political thriller. It's really written for conservatives. I'm open about that. I don't care. I'm trying to help consumers not, I don't want people who are on the left buying a book that they're going to be offended by. It's a political thriller. It's an alternate history where the progressives overthrow the United States of America, and 5 years later, a bunch of people start fighting to get it back. And as it looks now, it's probably going to be about a 10-book series dealing with the key characters and the key storylines that I have in place. But I'm writing book 5. Book 3 is at the editor right now. I just finished doing this last week, a review of the audio files for book 2, which is A Most Uncivil War. That came out in July. So I've been doing that, and it's been fantastic. We're also doing with a company I've started up with another person from Catalyst, Brent Evans. He started this company called Creative Juggernaut, and I've got a trilogy of books that we wrote. We have them edited. We have the cover of the first one done. They're a great series. It's a military sci-fi set 25 years in the future, deals with aliens. It's got some really cool stuff. That series of books, in some way, shape, or form, is going to come out in the next few months, I hope. We're either going to kickstart them. What's really been a kind of a pleasant surprise is I've had 5 publishers reach out to me and go, as a result of all of this, going, hey, we don't care about your politics. What do you got? So there may be some opportunities for us to accelerate getting the Land and Sea series out. And I've got another sci-fi series that I've got pitched. I've been reached out to by another major publisher to contribute to an anthology. So yeah, I got a ton of stuff suddenly on my plate, filling the gap that I had with Battletech. So, their loss, my win, and these are all publishers who either don't care what my politics are or they agree with my politics. So, what they're looking for is, do you have good stories and good content? If I do, well, they want to be in the Blaine Pardo business. So, I'm entertaining a lot of discussions right now.
Good. I mean, that's the thing too. Like, there's gonna be a lot of people out there who still care about sales, who still want to actually earn money in their business.
There is, there's a lot of publishers that I've been very pleased with the number of publishers that have reached out to me who have said, yeah, we've had authors go through this. It's stupid. We don't pander to that. And they've taken the stand, which, I talked about earlier, which is, hey, we just produce books and content. And if you don't like our authors' politics, don't buy their books. And the reality is the books sell, so the market's there. I've heard a lot of people talking that there's a need to have a conservative parallel economy, that we need to be doing that. Well, those economies exist already. There's publishers out there that support this stuff, that believe in the author, not the political slant, or they agree with the political slant. Doesn't matter. So it's been really great. My publisher, who does the Blue Dawn series, Defiance Press, has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, throughout all of this, they've reached out and said things like, "So how are you doing?" That it's not just a conversation about, how are book sales going or where are you at on the next book. It's, how are you doing? How are you holding up? It's really wholesome stuff, and I think there's a real strong community out there that just believes in, if there's a good story with great characters, well, I just want to read it, and that's how I buy books. I think we were talking before the show. There's a number of authors whose politics I absolutely abhor. I can't stand them. They're crazy socialist, communist, Antifa loving nutbags. They're anarchists. I can't stand their politics, but they write good stories, so I buy their books. I don't boycott them. I don't make a big stink about them online and go, "Oh, this person's a terrible person because of how he or she believes." It's like, yeah, I just want to know, are the series that they're writing, what's the next book? I'm going to buy it. Doesn't matter what their politics are. And I think that system has worked for centuries. So the concept that suddenly we need to change that, and that society needs to bend to the will of one side of the political spectrum and alter that so that, it's all about who they approve and who they allow to be published, it's ridiculous. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's because it's a relatively recent phenomenon that we are seeing here. The idea of repressive tolerance, as it's called, where tolerance must only be extended to one side of the political spectrum, specifically as a tool of political dominance. Like, that is why it's important for the progressive side that they do not tolerate conservative writers, whilst also arguing that because our society actually is very tolerant, we must tolerate their side. There's the beautiful example of this. YouTube has, as you probably know, a lot of rules on what you can and cannot host. One of which is, of course, that you cannot incite violence in any way. You can't argue for it or anything like that, right? Sensible rule. However, there are people on YouTube who have had interviews and promoted the author of a book called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which is a book that agitates for the destruction of energy infrastructure for the specific purpose of destroying the current world order. That is fine because it's the correct side of the political aisle. If I had, let's say for the sake of argument, that you had written a book on how to blow up pipelines because of conservative values, do you think this interview would be allowed to stay up?
No, it's definitely, the axe only falls on one side of the fence here, and I had not heard that story. Now I'm going to have to go look it up. You know that's disturbing, and it's bad. And I saw it the other day. There was one of the Catalyst's authors. People send me screenshots of stuff that they post, and he was up there comparing Antifa, to the greatest generation, in the United States that helped liberate Europe. And he was like, "Oh yeah, they're the same group," and I'm like, "No, they're not." If you look at any of the Antifa websites, it says their goal is to take down the United States and to destroy capitalism and things like that. And I'm like, to equate these people to the same politic, it just, you're crazy. It's clearly you never read a history book. But yeah, there's definitely, big tech plays a big role in that. And then Blue Dawn series, I admit I have a chapter. It's my favorite chapter in the first book, where I blow up the headquarters of Google, Facebook, Twitter, blow them up. And it felt good because I feel like they have been a contributor to a lot of the political strife that we've had here, and they do it under the guise of fact checking and protecting people. And I'm like, whatever happened to just letting people form their own opinions and doing their own research? Why do we have to try to protect people? I get it. If there's somebody out there threatening somebody's life, by all means, their account needs to be shut off. If you've got a protective order about somebody, they should be blocked from even communicating with you. The capability makes perfect sense. But to block people based on what you perceive to be, their politic and their political belief, that's very draconian and it's very bad. It's going to result in very bad things because it is a form of censorship. And as I said earlier, I'm against censorship. And the way you can tell it's censorship is if the situation was reversed. If this was conservatives applying it to liberals or to progressives or to extremists, activists on the left, that if they were being blocked, if they were being prohibited, if their messages were being taken down, would there be outrage for it? And the answer is yes. So, for them to say, well, it's okay if we do it to you, it's like, yeah, but if you flip it around, you would be the first one screaming.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was even very like every time I address this topic, there is an example from weeks ago at most of this. Like, it is prolific. Recently, it was a modding site for gaming which decided to remove a mod that replaced the pride flag with the American flag in a Spider-Man game. That mod was banned and its author was banned. They have half a dozen mods, however, replacing the American flag with the pride flag. It only cuts one way.
Yeah, to me that is censorship, and there's no other word for it that seems to apply. And it bothers me that this has become a level of editing that takes place in our society that is tolerated and accepted. And it's going to backfire on the people that are pushing for it, because there will be a point where they're not in control or not in power, and this will get employed against them. And boy, is it going to be, you're going to hear the crying and the sad songs when that happens.
It is unironically something I do worry about. Like, it's the swing of the pendulum. And we have seen the swing of the pendulum that has been much faster than most times in history. Like, already we are seeing the resurgence of a more conservative line of thought already within 10, 20 years of the progressives beginning to be on the rise, which is very quick, actually, compared to previous eras in history. And again, and I think it is because they've played their hands so hard and so strong and so fast and so obviously, and also because their products tend to be just worse and blatantly so. Like, in your example, Battletech is going to change because of this, unquestionably, because you were an author who wrote Battletech without your personal opinions and politics inserted into it. Now that you have been removed, what are the odds that the other authors are going to do so as well?
Well, yeah, now I saw it on the recent Kickstarter. I really wanted to be a part of the Kickstarter for Leviathans that they have running right now. And I saw one of the things reading through it, and they posted that, well, this game is set in 1914, and it's not a bunch of old white men who are running all the governments in Europe. We've made some changes, and we've inserted some women in positions of power in our redoing of the universe. And I said, why?
Why, indeed.
It's an alternate history, don't get me wrong. And you've altered it by saying there's flying battleships. That's all you really had to do for Leviathans. But, it's already happening at Catalyst. I experienced it with the editor. When I did Hour of the Wolf, one of the editorial comments that came back to me was, the last 2 chapters, you've only had men in the chapters. So change the sex of some of these characters so that they're women. And I contacted the editor, and I was like, why? And he goes, well, it's just an observation. We had all these men, and, just change some of them to women. And I said, well, first of all, some of these are people who have paid money to, have their characters put in this through the Kickstarter, their canon character request. And second of all, it doesn't help the story to change it to a female. Why am I doing this? And we went back and forth for several minutes on that topic. And I said, look, if it's part of the story, if it makes for a better story, I'll do it. But it doesn't make for a better story. In the real world, sometimes only men are in the room. Sometimes only women are in the room. Sometimes there's more women than men. Sometimes there's more men than women. Yeah, why are we doing this? And at the time, it didn't dawn on me, but this was woke checkboxing taking place. And I'm seeing it already creep into their editorial staff
It will
and what
happen.
they're doing. And now it makes more and more sense in light of the things that have happened to me. I now can reframe some of those conversations in my own mind and go, yeah, what they were trying to tell me was, I needed to have the proper representation of all of these disparate groups appear simply because that's what's now expected. And I think it's an idiotic way to write a book when you're deliberately trying to pander. And that's what that was.
Well, again, the thing is, to them, these are more important values. They are their greater good, and that is why I think it is inevitable that it will be continued to pushed. Because for you, it's like, well, why should I just change their gender? Like, that's weird. For them, that is a reason in and of itself. I sent you an article now, Kyle, which you can pull up on screen, where Magic the Gathering, which is a collectible card game, is doing a collaboration with Lord of the Rings, and they decided to make Aragon black. Just because.
I'm sure Tolkien would approve of that.
I'm sure Tolkien would love this, yes.
I got nothing here. I don't, that makes zero sense to me. Again, changing it, sometimes stories are just written the way they are. Are you going to go back through the Bible now and change people's sexes and their gender preferences and their sexual orientation and all? Are you going to change all of that?
Oh, they're gonna try.
I'm sure they will try.
It's on their list of things, I'm sure.
Well, it was funny. I was doing a podcast with my daughter, and I were being interviewed about one of our books, and we write true crime together. And it was so funny because this was an actual discussion that we had. And so the person said, well, tell me about why they went down this path. And I said, well, they were worried about these women because there was a perception that these women were prostitutes. And the podcaster stopped me and said, you can't say that. And I said, can't say what? I'm confused. He said, you can't say prostitute. These people were sex workers. So can you re-record that and use the word sex worker? And I said, that's not at all what the police report said. The police report that I read didn't say anything about sex workers. It said prostitutes. It used the P word. And I'd like to point out that the word prostitute does appear in the Bible and things. And they're like, yeah, but we have to say it this way to be respectful for people in that industry. And I'm like, they're prostitutes. They know they're prostitutes.
They are under no illusions.
Yeah, they know what they are. They know what they're doing. Well, it's better to say sex worker. And I was like, oh my God, I said, this is ridiculous, because I said, this is what it says in the police report. I said, I will say it the way you want me to, but I said, that's gotta be it. I said, this is just ridiculous. You're having me change what I'm telling you is in a police report because you're applying some social standard to it. So it's part of what you deal with now. And it's not just in science fiction, it's in every little nook and cranny to try to clean up what they perceive as slights. And I'm like, it's not a slight. I didn't say they were horrible people because they were prostitutes. I just said, the circumstance and the police identified them as prostitutes. Case closed. But you can't do that now.
Once again, it's I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and it is the hollowing out of the soul. Like, that is what happens when this occurs. Soul is a floaty term for all of the things that are in a setting, all of the little things, the appearances of characters, their actions, various habits, etc., all of the little things that make up a universe, the touches and the details, these all begin to disappear the moment the progressive take power, because to them, the setting or the history, the character, the story, they are not the most important thing. They are window dressing, they are props, and therefore they are of no value. That's why Aragon, who was famed for, flowing locks, etc., that very wild man style, as he was known as Strider, etc., white man, they just go, okay, right, we're gonna just change all of that. And I love the thoroughness of the insult too. Like, they don't just make him a black man or something like, okay, that's stupid, but they take it further. He is fighting with a sword and a shield here. He has short, cropped hair. Like, they take pains to make the character as opposite as humanly possible because of a sense of disgust at the source material.
Yeah, why do that if you dislike Tolkien's work that much, then don't do the product. But to go in and alter it so that it fits some standard that exists only in your mind is ridiculous. It's ridiculous and it's stupid. But we've reached that point now, where people, this is now how they think, this is how they operate, and it's going to ruin the gaming industry, and I think it's already starting. I've seen a lot of, Gen Con has gone way over the top. This year they came out against an anti-abortion bill that was being proposed, and I'm like, why does a gaming convention give a toot about?
What business is this of yours? You are a hobby
Yeah,
convention.
you don't even vote, and most of the people that run Gen Con don't live in the state. So why is that a big deal? And the answer is, well, it's a big deal because that's what they want, and so that's where they tend to focus, and that's how they tend to think. And what it's doing is driving a lot of people away. And when we talk about parallel economies, when I brought it up earlier, there's a whole group of people that I know that went out and formed, they have their own, they call it a battle barn. And they don't go to Gen Con except for one day each. They rent a facility outside of Indianapolis, and they don't have to wear masks. They can run their games all day long at their own hotel, and people packed in to see it. And people traveled out from Gen Con to go to their little side thing that they didn't even charge for. It was just, hey, we've rented a room and we're going to play the games we want to play there. And you're starting to see this pushback against the masks and pushback against this progressive stuff that is propagating at these conventions, etc. And people are just going, hey, we'll just rent a room and people can go play the game over here, and you don't have to have all that baggage with you. And I was hats off to the guys that did it. They've done it now 2 years in a row. They didn't lead to some super spreader event that killed everyone because of COVID or anything else. It just made perfect sense. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the science fiction industry. We've seen it with, the Rippaverse in the comics area, and we're seeing it a lot more. There's a convention called BasedCon here in the United States that's really about kind of conservatives and libertarians who are in science fiction. They have their own convention now, and they're like, we don't want to go to the big ones because we don't want to pander, and we don't want to have to play identity politics. We just want to have fun and talk with people who are like-minded. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in all of the geekdom that's out there, be it gaming, collectible cards, miniatures, etc. A lot of companies are just tired of this stuff, and they're going to go out and be successful without having to play that game.
Yep, the pendulum is, in my opinion, has been swinging back for a while now, but it's starting to pick up momentum.
A slow turn. And I like that you bring up the term geekdom too, because the thing is, geekdom is fundamentally non-mainstream. Like, it is something out there, something different. It is people who enjoy a thing because of the thing it is. And once it becomes mainstream, it always loses that soul. It loses its identity, and it gets infested by people who don't understand it. There was another beautiful example recently from Games Workshop, my favorite hobby of Warhammer 40k, where they decided to give all of the Space Wolves wolf helmets because they, from an outsider perspective, it's Space Wolves, well, wolf helmets, obviously. Meanwhile, everyone who's actually in it just looks at it and cringes and like, no, that's not the point. They don't look like wolves.
Well, you know, I've seen it. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since 1972. I still have on my shelf the white boxed edition that started it all. I still run a game, and I still have a lot of fun. My grandson now wants me to start up a campaign for him and his friends, and I'm like, hey, happy to do it. You know, you look at what Wizards of the Coast have been doing, where they're pushing, well, we don't want orcs to be treated, you know, as an evil race, you know, and the drow, oh, the drow, you know, everybody makes them out to be villainous, and they're really just misunderstood. And I'm like, so now drow lives matter, orc lives matter,
They all
and I'm
matter
like,
now.
and I'm like, who was offended by this? Who, you know, did the orc community reach out to you and say that they were deeply offended by this? This is Dungeons and Dragons. It's a game. You can play it any way you want. If you tell if your dungeon master wants, he can make, you know, the orcs a very happy-go-lucky group of leprechaun-like people. It doesn't matter. But they're going, no, the rules have to change. We have to alter the fundamentals of the game to now pander to this and to play up to it. And it's a joke. And I'm like, you're ruining Dungeons and Dragons. You're literally ruining it because you're paying attention to people who are telling you that it's not fair to the orcs. The orcs don't exist.
Yeah, and again, it is the outsider. That's the thing. Somebody comes in, somebody progressive, and looks at an orc and says, "Oh, black person," and the rest of us are just, hold on a second there.
Yeah.
Because nobody else thinks like that. Nobody in normal within Dungeons and Dragons will look at an orc and go like, "Ah, it's a commentary on the black race." Like, what? But people from the
No, it's
outside
never been
will.
that.
And that is the issue. Because we can sit there, we can try to explain it like, no, it's a fantasy race. It's a goddamn orc. What's wrong with you? And they simply won't accept it. And deep down, I think even they understand that they are wrong, and that is where their need to change it at the fundament comes from. So that one day they can hold up the book and go, actually, look, in the rule book it says that the orcs aren't evil.
Well, yeah, and I've seen this with a couple of role-playing games that have come out recently too. When you open the cover and it talks about what is a role-playing game, which most of us kind of gloss over. I read one recently, and I'm not going to ruin. I'm not going to go after this company, but it said something like, "There's no room for racism in this game. If you're a racist, you shouldn't be playing this game." And I'm like, first of all, you know, gaming is the most inviting, open community ever until the last year or two. To be honest with you, people who didn't function well in a lot of places in society had a great home in gaming. I've never seen anybody excluded because they were a woman, a man, a transgender. You could show up at a game wearing a furry costume and nobody really cared. It was like, hey, if you want to sling some dice with us, sling some dice with us. I've never seen discrimination in gaming. But if you listen to these people, gaming is this toxic environment of it's a patriarchy, and it's white men, and it's all bad, and we need to get more women in this game. And I'm like, we've never turned down women at all in gaming. Why do we have to have more women in it? Who decided what the magic number or proportion of women in gaming is? You know, no one's ever turned down women from joining gaming. No, I've never seen that. Matter of fact, most of these guys would be thrilled if a woman played at their table. You know, it wouldn't be a problem at all. But to listen to these folks, it's a major issue and it's a major thing that has to be fixed. And I'm like, it doesn't need fixing. It never did. Gaming's always been a place for people who might not fit in real well with other people, but they could go at a table and sling some dice and have some fun. And yeah, I turned 60 this year, but I'm still an uber geek. You know, I subscribe to comic books. I watch cartoons from time to time. I have fun like every other geek. We played Gaslands last night with my grandson and his friend and my wife. So we're up there playing, with Matchbox cars with machine guns on them and stuff. So, it's amazing to me that there's this perception that there's problems that need to be fixed in gaming. And I'm like, I don't think those problems exist at all. I think the problems are the people screaming there's a problem.
Oh, absolutely. And again, it's the same thing. They don't know because they weren't there at the beginning. Gaming was a hobby for outcasts, like you said, those who didn't necessarily fit in. It wasn't popular back in the day. Like, hell, you're older than me again, and I can tell you, when I was a kid, it was not socially acceptable to be interested in gaming or D&D and stuff. It was weird. Like, best case scenario, you were just a nerd. Worst case, you were that weird kid.
And how things have changed. Because you're not that much older than me, and yet when I grew up and went through high school, everybody was playing video games. Like, most of the girls I knew...
generation.
Most of the girls I knew play World of Warcraft, and we played in the same guild. Like, things change.
And that is the problem. If only the world had ended when Kyle became born, it would have been just beautiful.
94 wasn't the best year to end the world.
But no, you are correct. It is the way it's changed.
You guys have hit the nail on the head too. It's once it got mainstream, Arch, you said it perfectly. Once it appeared on Big Bang Theory and people saw other people playing D&D and famous Hollywood people got involved playing D&D, and once that happened, it was like, oh man, you let the weirdos in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We had a nice thing going, and now everybody wants to have a contribution to it. And it's sad because it's like, I like to think it's an open community and that we can have some fun, but boy, I'll tell you, sometimes it drives you up the walls.
Because the problem is, they're not entering into it in good faith. They're not coming in there because they're like, wow, this looks fun. They're coming in there because, well, this is popular. I guess I'll tolerate it.
A lot of your average Joes that are coming into gaming and, like, geekdom, well, they're just casuals. But the people that are actually, I think, more at problem here are the people in charge. Because as the gaming industry has grown in wealth, a lot more people have come in, and it's no longer about fun. It's no longer about making fun things on the productive side of things, on the producer side. It's about making what's hip, what's popular. The corporate suits are taking over, and the corporate suits are the ones that bite this whole wokeism bullshit, when most of your average Joes and average schmucks don't really care.
Because they come from the outside.
I think... Well, and there's also this perception that we have to attack the companies that are doing this and go after them, be it Catalyst, be it Games Workshop, whatever. And it's like, I've seen this on the Warhammer side a lot. It's like, oh, well, you got to change everything to make it more inclusive. And once you start that going down that path, you start shedding gamers, because gamers are like, look, it's bad enough you guys change the rules all the time and I have to go buy a new rule set. Okay, I get it. But, and you change what's available in the way of miniatures and they're expensive. Yeah, I get that too. But once you start going back and going, well, now we're going to retroactively go and make changes to the universe to pander to these people, they're crossing a line with a lot of gamers. And I think a lot of gamers are like, no, we're not doing that. We're done. And it's interesting to watch. And I feel bad for the companies because they think they're doing the right thing, but what they've really done is let the demon in,
And I think that's a good point too, because a lot of these people, like you see, the Rings of Power TV show is coming up, and the showrunners there was recently an article where they were insulted by the fact that people said that their show was only loosely connected to Tolkien. It's like, no, we start like every writing session with a Tolkien quote. these are people who think that they're doing their best, who think that they're trying to be honest to the setting. They're not. And the reason why is because they don't understand it. They have no true frame of reference. They see Galadriel and they see what they have been raised to see. They see the strong female character. And so it has to be the modern day strong female character, the plate and chainmail wearing character that fights goddamn trolls with a sword and kung fu moves. Meanwhile, we still haven't attached a. We just need, okay, find out where Tolkien is buried and hook him up to a power plant. He will provide endless rotational energy at this point.
I feel bad, because it does ruin the effect for everyone, and you just know that they're going to destroy it in the end, because they can't. Once they start down that path, they can't stop. And so it starts out as something small like that, and then it's like, well, if we're going to change that, we can change this, and we can change this, and let's throw that out. Let's put something cooler in. And it'd be really good if we had something that was an allegory to Trump or to Putin or whatever, and we're going to stick that in, and let's reference Ukraine but call it something else, and they'll weave all this stuff in, because once they start down that path, they can't stop. They have no self-control mechanisms in themselves to say, whoa, we're going too far. It's like, no, we went this far. Let's keep going. Let's see where this can take us.
It's the drive to try and modernize it, which is ridiculous. Like,
But
Tolkien's tale is. Go on.
It's a mythical story. Why modernize it?
Yeah, and it is an immortal story. Like, it's a simple story. It is good versus evil, start, middle, beginning, ending, etc. It's a solid story. What could you possibly gain from modernizing it? You'd ruin it. That's all. Like, there's no point or reason beyond the political.
Yeah, it's. I fear where our hobbies are going to go. I think we are turning a corner, and we've seen this with Eric July and what he's doing with Ripley First and stuff. There's a corner being turned, and I think what's happening is a lot of gamers, comic fans, fiction fans are speaking with their wallets, and that will eventually have an impact. And it's going to really force a lot of these companies. I think some of these companies will go out of business as a result, because they won't know how. Because when they try to rein this back in and go, fine, we're not going to pander to the left isn't going to stand for that. The progressive radicals are going to, they're not going to allow that. They're not going to be able to back up. And these companies are going to find themselves in a real quagmire.
And it takes them too long. Like, in the case of Games Workshop, it's now taken them 20 years to make the turn to progressivism. If they realize that they've bet on the wrong horse, it's going to take them another 20 years to turn back again. I think a lot of these companies will simply die out like dinosaurs. People look at them in 10 years' time and go like, ugh, cringe. You were one of those companies? Nah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of new stuff that comes out that's really good, that people play, and it's going to do just fine. And the technology is also changing. I've seen so many of these companies go after fans who are 3D printing things, and I'm like, they're 3D printing things so that people will use the miniatures in your game. Just be happy with that. I get it. They're making money, etc. But you're spending money with lawyers trying to hunt these people down like they're some horrible criminal, when in reality they're just feeding more people to buy your game and your game product. Why are you doing this with your fans? There's so much changing in gaming, and I think that's something that a lot of these game companies still haven't wrapped their hands around, is 3D printing and the changes in technology, and the changes even to the fact that people are leaning away from books, and they want, just give me the PDF of it. I'll print out the parts that are important type thing. And I think a lot of these companies are stuck in old models that are based in the 1980s.
You're probably right about that. But that's good, though, because when new people come along and the next generation of creators, we're going to take advantage of that. And that is going to be the edge we get over those pre-established companies.
Well, it was one of the reasons with Creative Juggernaut, we've been making some miniatures ourselves that have been licensed to Catalyst. And one of the things I did is I was the only member of the team that didn't have a 3D printer, so I bought one. And my whole reason for buying it is I wanted to see what is the technology. It's a resin printer. I wanted to learn the technology so that I could clearly help define our strategy for dealing with 3D printing. And for us, we're actually going the opposite direction that a lot of these companies do. We're going to go, you know what? We're going to embrace this. Some of these fans are never going to buy the miniatures. They want to print them. So we're going to make it so that they can do that because we'll sell game product anyway. You know, it's going to happen whether you like it or not. So you might as well feed the beast and be friendly to that side of the business rather than fight your fan base and against it. And it requires a completely different way to look at these things and challenge yourself if you're a game company owner to go, well, wait, what's everybody else doing? Maybe they're all doing it wrong. And I think that's going to be it's going to open up a lot of cool ground for the companies that are just willing to, you know, go, hey, I'm not gonna make a lot of money on selling prepackaged miniatures, but I'll sell the STL files and people will buy the rules and keep buying the game. So we're cool.
There's still many ways to monetize a product because at the end of the day, you are still a business. You still need to earn money, of course. But that doesn't mean you have to do the same thing that has always been done. And as Kyle says,
Yeah.
it's not ironically a benefit that a lot of these companies are doing this because how would anyone from the outside ever have a chance to compete with Star Wars if Disney didn't decide to kill it first?
Yep. It's kind
Yeah,
of
well.
like, it's sort of my theory about it because I'm an indie developer too. And one of my things is with all these companies, these pre established IPs crumbling to the ground, this is kind of like a forest fire. It's going to burn away all the trees so that the new plants can grow up. The new upstarts can finally, get established. Because nobody would have given them the time of day because they're overshadowed so much. Like these big IPs have all this overreaching content. But now that they're sabotaging themselves, now's the perfect time to rise up.
Yeah, I think you're dead on accurate. I think there's going to be some new product out there that people go, gee, I've been playing this for 20 years, but there's something new and it's different and it's fun and yeah, I'll go play that. And we've seen this with a lot of the refugees that fled from, the Warhammer 40K community who came into Battletech. Unfortunately, I think they brought some of their crazy extremist views, but a lot of them have fled and entered Battletech. Now, for a long time, I didn't think the numbers were that big, but I've gotten a lot of emails from people, especially in the last few weeks with all that I've been going through. And there's a lot of people that surprised me that came out and said, I just left all this crap over at Games Workshop and now I'm dealing with it over here in Battletech.
They were followed.
Yeah, it's like, well, you probably brought the problem with you, but you didn't know it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, again, it is also just that relentless drive to infect everything that appears to be popular for the simple sake that it appears to be popular. You've got the outsider who's like, oh, hey, this is taking off now. I guess I'm going to jump on the bandwagon. And that'll happen to Battletech too. Like, it was getting a bit of a resurgence, so people started like, maybe there's power and authority to be gained here. And with a company that's already making those decisions, fertile ground.
Yeah. I don't think they gained anything. All they've done is tear down stuff. And in the end, that's what I'm seeing is they're tearing, even with your example of, Magic the Gathering, they haven't made anything better. What they've done is ruin something that everyone expected. So if they're going to change what's on a card, and change the artwork to make some political point, they're not making it better. They're ruining it. Everybody that thinks it's better, there's 5 people in the wings that are saying you ruined it for me.
Yep. And all it takes is some actual competition to begin upheaving this. But that too is going to take a long time to build, of course. There's a lot of steps involved, a lot of processes, a lot of building that needs to be done. But we are seeing the start of it, and I'm very optimistic for where it will eventually lead.
I am as well.
We might even have a future at some point where you can be a conservative and exist at the same time.
Oh, I guarantee you, there's plenty of. I was amazed. I got reached out to by 3 Kickstarters who were like, "Look, if Callus doesn't want you, we'll take you." There's a lot going on out in that space, and there's a lot of people who really don't care what anybody's politics are. They're going, "Hey, if you can bring some fans along with you, we'll do something with you." And I think that's great. And I think that Kickstarter is enabling a lot of new companies to get up and going and off the ground.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'll move on to some of the super chats next. I'm sure there's some questions and interesting points in there as well. And do you want to see?
All right.
Let's see now. No, YouTube. Now would not be a good time to insert an ad either. Ah, poor little YouTube. I can't wait for a YouTube competitor, though that's probably not happening anytime bloody soon, sadly. Even more so, as of course that is... Alright. Kyle, make noises whilst I look for the alternative monetization thing, because it's deleted the log again.
It did? You need to give me access to the back end, you boomer, because only I know how to manage technology here.
The thing is, if I tab away for too long, it just kind of wipes out the entire super chat log, because it's like, you don't need this. Actually.
You set up a Streamlabs account, did you not? Because Streamlabs actually keeps a log, and their log actually works 99.9% of the time.
That is correct, Chile. Yes, Chile. There you go.
Chili?
That is correct, Kyle, but it only has so long a log, and the super chat list is longer than the log, so...
Mm-hmm.
Ah, there we go.
Wow.
Okay. Dokie then. Right, starting up. Zonta asks, was the Turpit supposed to set up House Cameron's return, Cameroon maybe, or was it a red herring? And how would you handle the clan's response to their return?
That's a great question. That comes from the Comstar source book, which I wrote. It was never intended to be anything more than what it was, which was a battleship that showed up and got attacked. It's been some great theories that have been fronted that this is about the return of House Cameron. I'm not privy to any discussions that have taken place where that will take place. It's too much of an iconic event to have House Cameron wiped out when the Star League fell. I think it would almost cheapen it to have them come back, but I don't know beyond a certain period of time. You never know. Catalyst may go down that path at some point down the future, but it was never intended to be anything more than what it was.
The Turpitz affair was funny though.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing how a little piece of almost sidebar fiction became this giant thing in the last few years. So I do appreciate that, though.
Yeah, the thing is, the Comstar book's actually really cool because that source book, while it's, super old, it has not only a really badass cover, because it's got 3 magical space wizards on it, but you also have all sorts of deep lore about one of the coolest organizations in Battletech. The secretive, papal sort of like Comstar faction.
Oh yeah, it was a hoot to write. Because we had
imagine.
only done the house books. We only done the house books at that point, and it was like, yeah, but you never covered Comstar. it was a nightmare to pull together all of the canon that had already been written about Comstar and to try to weave it into kind of some frame of context, because we only knew about 3 premises out of like, I think there were 8 or 9 that were total so far, but we only knew about 3 by name that were mentioned. So you had to fill a lot of gaps, and you had to tell some stories that had some degree of action in them, that made sense within the framework of the canon we had already established. So it was a nightmare to pull together, but it was a lot of fun to do because, like I said, it was great fun for me to hit a faction that just nobody had ever thought about. Wow, let's focus on them. And of course, then what followed was the clan invasion.
Squatch Hammer says, after seeing your interview with Razor, I bought your Blue Dawn book as well as your other BT books in case they stall in them. Good idea. I'm sick and tired of this kind of stuff in my hobbies.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know if I find it a little weird that Catalyst is like, doing future books with this guy is wrong, but we're going to keep his other ones up and sell them. I don't know what the logic is there. They're not going to tell me what they're going to do. It wouldn't surprise me if they came down at
Jesus.
some point. I just don't know. It's kind of weird. It's a weird situation, and it's fluid a little bit, I think. So I understand people. I've heard from a number of people going, hey, I'm buying all your Battletech books just because they might not be around. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you because they're not going to tell me what they're doing.
Yeah, like it's it's one of those funny things, isn't it? On the one hand, you're not good enough for the brand anymore. You're damaging, but you sell a bit too much to get rid of you.
Yeah, there's a weird irony with that I try not to get into too much because it really does give me a headache.
It is the beauty of doublethink in the modern day progressive world.
Oh yeah.
Ballon says, hi Blaine, since they will never be published, are you allowed to tell us the rough story beats of the books you had written for them that won't be published?
Um, you know, I'm not going to do that. I don't. To me, Catalyst paid for those, and it's up to them if they want to release them. I can tell you the two novels that I had going. Um, they never even asked for the text of those, and I have no intention of ever releasing it because, again, I don't want to do anything that's going to promote BattleTech further at this point. But that's up to Catalyst to decide if they want to make that information public. Frankly, I was kind of surprised that they just didn't, the stuff that was done through edit that already had artwork. I was surprised they didn't just release that stuff. And 3 days after I did this announcement, they re-released one of my Dark Age books, Fire at Will, which I don't know if that was some sort of damage control measure that they were trying to do or what, but it was awful weird given everything else that had transpired. They certainly didn't communicate that to me at all in advance. So very strange. So it's hard to say, but I really don't want to go down there. I was working, the one I was really enjoying was I was working on a Smoke Jaguar book that was really going to explain the clan in the Dark Ages era. And it really had some cool elements to it, and it was going to be a fun book. And I think I got 40,000 words of the book done, so there's a lot there. But they pulled the plug and never even asked for the file, so it's just it's going to be a mystery lost text.
Forever lost to the darkness.
Yep.
Angron the Red Angel says, sue, wrongful termination and unsafe work environment. Nick Rikita could likely hook you up with a good lawyer in your area.
A lot of people have said push a lawsuit, and there's definitely the opportunity for me to go after the people that caused this. There's a number of different avenues I can go down that path with, and I'm not going to reveal my cards at this time. I have, whether I pursue any legal action against Catalyst, that's TBD. It wouldn't be prudent for me to go into that at this point in time. But, honestly, when it comes down to it, I was a contract employee and I was being paid by contract per work that I was doing. They had a termination clause in their contract that allowed them to, for no reason, if they chose to end that relationship on that particular work. They did that with, I believe, 7 or 8 works that were in flight. And so, is it wrongful? I wasn't an employee, so there's a lot there. There's a lot legally that you have to kind of wade through, but I'm not going to reveal my hands on any of this at this time.
Silence is golden.
I'm a good
when it comes
gamer.
to
I'm a good
legal
gamer. I'm not
proceedings.
going to tell you the strategy up front.
That is smart. But certainly also considering recent events where Salman Rushdie, the author of the Satanic Verses, recently got stabbed by one of his long-term stalkers. So unsafe work environment. It certainly rings a bit
Oh
more
yeah,
true
believe
right
me,
now.
I had this discussion with my wife. I said, if anything does happen between my stalker and me, and I'm assaulted or attacked in any way, shape, or form, Catalyst is going to be considered kind of an accessory to the fact in that. So we'll see where that goes. They've kind of fed this beast, so they've got to deal with the consequences of it.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly have. Sujad says, don't forget that German experiment where they gave kids to pedos, so that's CPS telling a kid to turn tricks. Woke people could very well give him kids. Yes, he referred to there was unironically a program in the German child care, like, what's the term? Like when the government steps in to like take children from abusive parents, etc. Children's services or something, I think is the English word. Where they then gave them into the custody of pedophiles on the basis that they really like kids, which is true, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think I want to play with that question too much.
It is such a decidedly German thing to do as well. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Aslock says, Kibbs will lead the rest of the Brony community in support of BLP against Catalyst. Also, BLP Legends of Terrestria. Faction when?
This thing hurts me. But
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one too.
yeah, I'd pass. Listen, the only reason why I have this cancerous profile picture is because I was paid to do it. Paid $2,000, and let's just say changing my profile picture for $2,000 was well worth it. But the memes that came out of it are a bit cancer.
And Kyle, I can't help but notice that you still haven't updated your proper picture on the ArchCast.
Because I refuse to look like that.
Coward. Mage Leader says, just wanted to say that Faith is targeting creators as well. He messaged me with a sad rant, pulled the 2 kids card, told me I was dividing the community, told him politely that he was wrong.
Politely? What?
Well,
That was your personal take.
Yeah.
Faith has gone after, and so has some of Faith's sock accounts, because Faith manages a number of fake accounts. They've gone after reporters, podcasters, they've gone after YouTubers, bloggers, anybody that covers me in a positive light, they go after them. And some of them they do quite vigorously. And it's funny because a lot of them share with me, like, look at the stuff this nutbag has been sending me. And it's like, yeah, well, welcome to the party. I'm sorry you had me on your show and now you're a target, but they're really making my case for me. So when they go after somebody like Mage and et cetera, congratulations. You're just proving everything that I said about them.
Yep. I'm pretty sure I copped myself a 1-week suspension for a months-old video about the Buzz Lightyear movie after my positive video on you. Which, because I suddenly got a strike out of nowhere for hate speech on that video.
Well, you didn't like the movie, right?
No, and the best part is I defended the lesbian kiss in it quite vigorously, saying like this is not a problem, and well, that was hate speech, so that's the last time I defend the LGBTQ community, I guess. Thank you, YouTube. I have learned my lesson.
Your first mistake was defending them to begin with, Arch. God.
That is the issue. I hate the modern day representation of this because gay people are just people, and their romance should be presented in the same way that everybody else's romance is, as a normal thing, not pushed as an agenda.
Well, my son is gay, and I crack up that they've labeled me as anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ, and I'm like, my son is gay, and he even thinks it's funny, because he's like, clearly they have no idea who you are and what our relationship is, etc. And it's amazing. These people do not represent that community. The people that scream about this stuff, they are not duly appointed representatives of that community. They're self-appointed anarchists, and that they're using that label so that they can paint themselves as victims in many cases. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. So, when they kind of react to stuff like that and complain and etc., they don't represent the vast majority of people in that community. At least that's my take on it. They're free to rebuttal me. God knows they do.
No, I absolutely agree. They are co-opting the gay movement as they are co-opting video games and everything else. It is being seized for their own purposes, and they could not give two shits about what it was there for originally.
Yeah.
It is a tragic thing. And
It is.
Boog decides to be cancerous. God damn it, Boog, I will find you one day. And asks, what does Mr. Blaine think of the isekai genre?
Oh, God.
I'm actually not familiar with that. Sorry.
Well, Arch, care to explain?
Oh, Boog, you owe me a lot more than 50 tacos.
Oh, you're a weeb. You'll enjoy explaining it.
The isekai genre is it's a variant of manga, the Japanese cartoon stuff, where somebody dies and gets transported to a different world, usually filled with magic and elves and shit.
It's a power fantasy genre.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on it because I haven't seen it, but as long as it's healthy stuff and as long as it's entertaining people, go for it. Why not enjoy it and embrace it? That just because we all in the geek community don't rally behind a genre or whatever doesn't mean it's bad. I never got into manga at all. That it just was an anime wasn't my thing. It's not that I didn't try. I tried to watch some of the movies and it just never grabbed me. But that doesn't mean I'm against it. It just means it's not my shtick. Not all of us who are in the geek community embrace every little weird genre and subgenre that's out there.
Mm-hmm. There you have it, Boog. You must go enjoy isekai yourself. Mark Deshamed says they want to break the arm of the pendulum. They are certainly trying, but in their efforts, I suspect they will only make it swing back harder, which I do have some worries about that too, because the other extreme can be just as censorious, but I mean, tomorrow's enemy is just that.
They tried much harder in the 1930s, and the left didn't succeed in Europe in the end, did they?
No. Yes, the other branch of socialism.
Different flavor.
They targeted the wrong nation, okay? They bet on Germany for a second go-around. This time they're trying America, and we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, it's not going to play out quite the way they think.
Blue Satoshi says, get this, the Spider-Man flag mod merely changed the region to Middle East. Has that been confirmed? Because I've been seeing the rumors go around there, but I haven't seen it being confirmed yet. But I can absolutely see that happening. I was like, oh, Middle Eastern version can't have pride flags. Yeah,
so it turns out the mod was just unlocking the regional thing, because it's funny, these companies will change their profile pictures to match whatever's popular. you know?
Yes.
And so it's like,
except in the Middle East.
well, it's whatever's regional, right? So if it was a swastika, it'd be a swastika.
I do love that. Every Pride Month, you see the little companies change their avatar, and yet the company's Middle Eastern branch always remains plain. Strange.
Companies don't have morals; they just want profits.
Mark James says they forgot all about Queen Elizabeth the first, but we all know they would put Bloody Mary on the throne. I heard they defaced Queen Elizabeth's statue in Canada recently because, colonialism or something.
Well,
Yeah, this destruction of statues is just so grossly ignorant, inoffensive to anybody who studies history or who studies art. A lot of these statues are one-of-a-kind pieces of art, and defaming them and destroying them or damaging them, you're damaging something by some of the greatest artists, of their time period. It's ridiculous. If you want to add context to a statue, hey, put up a marker and explain the other side of the story or whatever. But you don't need to tear things down to try to raise yourself up.
yep. But these people want to erase history so that they can repeat it.
They find it
Yes.
offensive.
Well,
It
they
is
wanna-
like the mad pope that woke up one day and started hacking off schlongs in the Vatican.
The various, ancient Roman statues were being defaced, and the ones they captured from Greece ruined.
Like immaculate masterpieces that we can barely match with modern technology, vandalized by a crazy person. Oh well, at least we can take some solace in the fact that there's always have been crazy people.
Cyclical nature of man.
It's just now they have access to the internet.
Yeah. They can get on a soapbox and be a little louder and a little bit more obnoxious.
Black 1917 says, Quecken, hail Arch Christ, our Lord and Saviour. Breed Gibbs, also, hello, Mr. Pardo. Welcome to the Autism. Welcome indeed.
Okay.
Mark Ashamed says, are you going to change the Bible? The answer is yes. Take a look at the Soviet Union and how they banned Lord of the Rings until it was changed. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I am sure eventually we are going to see progressive Christianity, which is going to have a real problem with the Bible.
Yeah. One of the hate letters I got from my crazed stalker actually went off on something, and they said, you probably are one of these fascist Christian believers. And I was like, I actually had to pause and go, I got to Google fascist Christian now. And all I got were references to World War II where, priests and allegedly the Catholic Church was helping the Germans. But it was hilarious from a perspective of, fascist Christianity? Where did that come from?
Well,
Most of
they have
those,
developed a habit of simply attaching the word fascist to anything and everything, because it creates a
Yeah.
knee-jerk reaction.
Yep. Call somebody a name, even if they're not that thing, as long as it has a negative connotation.
Ironically,
it's
the Catholic
labeling
Church
them.
was quite fond of the Austrian painter for a while because outwardly he was quite openly Christian. Privately, he even said that he wished Germany was a Muslim country because it was a better religion for what he had in store.
And later, actually, I believe the church sort of changed their tune as they realized which wind he was blowing. Because remember, Hitler was actually fairly popular with pretty much everybody until he started to enact his plan.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
God, what was It was the preceding British Prime Minister. Was it Winston Churchill? I don't think it was Winston Churchill. I think it was the guy
Neville
before him
Chamberlain?
who said it might
Neville
have been
Chamberlain.
Because
I
I
believe
don't
it's
remember
Neville
who it was,
Chamberlain.
but there was a British leader who said, "If Britain is ever in trouble, I pray God sends us a leader like Adolf Hitler." Because
That
hey,
did not age well.
he did turn the German economy around. Just such a shame
did.
with all that other stuff. Oh, Christ.
He probably lived to hate that quote. Forever.
I imagine so, yes. Like, this aged poorly, yes.
My career is over.
Ah, the little old Austrian painter. Black 1917 says, "This is Dungeons and Dragons. You can play it the way you want, and therein lies the problem, Blaine. They don't want you to play it your way, they want you to play it their way." Yes, that tends to be the problem.
Yeah, he's 100% right, and I refuse to play by their rules. So
There can only be one rule. I love the fucking idea that the entire base concept of D&D was, hey, this is like a toy box, do whatever. And obviously then we have reached the modern day and people look at it and go, like, prescriptive rule sets, I see. No.
No flexibility.
yeah, it's well, not only that, but it's a game of killing things and looting bodies. It's it's a fantasy in and of itself, so just let it be a fantasy. I don't, the more you apply rules to things, the worse things are.
As they say, everything is political. Michael James says, instead of prostitute, you should have said professionals, as they consider it the oldest profession. So when someone brags or tells you to be more professional, we all know what they mean.
Well, but I wasn't prepared to say that they were pros at what they were doing. I was simply stating what they were. I don't know if they were professional prostitutes. They could have been really bad prostitutes. I don't know. But, I was being told I had to call them a sex worker, which just was ridiculous all on its own.
Because they represented the industry, and by God, the industry of prostitution.
Yeah.
This is coming from a guy too I have no problems with the legalization of prostitution because I view it as, if people are going to do it regardless, we might as well tax it. But to view it as an industry, like, it gives me this picture of a factory line where the prostitutes are just like, yep, reach that weekly quota.
It's quite disgusting.
Not only that, but it implies government regulation, which will be hilarious.
It would be beautiful. You engage the services of prostitutes. He pulls out a book like, so these are the government guidelines I need to read you before we get to this.
Yeah, I'm going to call this foreplay.
It'd be funny if nothing else. Oh,
I think we just wrote a comedy skit.
Glow in the Dark says, these people can only think that people are like themselves, so most of their criticism are projection. The only reason they get away with this stuff is they are used to people rolling over. That is true.
That's true.
They have gained so much institutional power now, and that's the thing too, like, people on our side of the divide, we tend to adopt a very live and let live attitude, which is why we don't do, shit like creating bot farms to spam the owner of Fanatics with hate mail. And that's also, ironically, why we don't have as much effect either, because we have, well, rules.
Well, we assume a certain moral high ground, and they're changing the rules of this game. And at some point, you have to start questioning, are we going to play by our rules or their rules? And, can you imagine if you called up any of these people's bosses and said, hey, I want you to know what they're posting on the internet. You should fire them. How would their reaction be to us doing that to them? And, they would be the first ones screaming about how unfair and unjust that is and how wrong it is, and they're harassing me, etc. But when they do it, it's perfectly acceptable. And they're going to reach a point at some point where that's going to start happening to them. And it's going to be interesting to watch because they definitely don't like it when the rules are applied back to them.
Yep, it's already happening, and it'll only pick up speed. Nicholas Quistoff says, I came across MechWarrior and Battletech in the 90s with MechWarrior 3 and love the universe ever since. Is there a way to buy your books without supporting their agenda? So without supporting Catalyst Games Lab, I would presume.
Other than going to used bookstores to get them, I don't have an alternative to that. You know, if you buy them on Amazon and the money goes through Catalyst, you know, and again, I'm not. I appreciate the fact that someone's trying to protest with their wallet, and I understand that that's their right to do it. But the only other way to do it is that you go and buy it, you know, at a used bookstore and hope to come across it.
It's sadly not that easy. Giga can't say that word on YouTube. I don't even know how you managed to sneak that one past the YouTube censors. To have professional sci-fi writers as GM in D&D or any other game must be a great experience. Blondie might take a note or two. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. If you go to my blog on WordPress, you can actually, I've novelized all of our D&D sessions. So I think there's 38 of them up there for the current campaign. I've got one that I've got to do still, but before we do our next session. But yeah, I've been keeping track of it, so you can actually read what happened during our D&D campaign, good, bad, and horrible.
Really cool.
It's a lot of fun. It's a good creative exercise, and it helps me as a writer to run games.
Glow in the Dark. They want to reduce harm and violence. They see speech and disagreement as a form of harm and violence because feelings or whatever. They do.
Yeah.
Words are violent. Ugh. See, I used to argue with these things, but these days I just ignore. Just point and laugh.
You can't, because you're arguing with somebody who thinks feelings equate to facts.
Yes, like I could explain this to you, but frankly, I'd have a better chance teaching a fish to, well, fish. Black 1917 says, not just $2,000, Kyle. $2,000 in under 5 minutes. You've got quite a bit more. Yes. Kyle is well, speaking about professional prostitutes, I mean, you could always ask Kyle. He's very good at this.
That's not true. This is slander.
I don't know. $2,000 in 5 minutes, Kyle. There are very few escorts that have that kind of pull.
God damn it. I will get him back later.
Well,
He just
it's a game
doesn't
of give and take.
Okay. Listen, we got to pay the bills somehow.
I could say more, but I shall refrain. For I am a kind and gentle man. Glow in the Dark. Problem I see is ESGs. When a company goes broke, they can go woke and get billions of investments. So this will kill 401ks, in my opinion. So the ESG, in case you're unaware, Blaine, it's basically a investment score system where a lot of people and the companies that have a certain political persuasion can rank companies depending on how woke they are, and so if I decide to pump their money into it.
How low on the rank can you get?
Yeah, I've been following that actually, and I think there's some of that comes into play. But in the end, we're approaching some tough economic times out here, which means a lot of money investment money is going to dry up, and it's going to come with the expectations of actual performance rather than politics. And I think that's going to be one of the things that helps align and straighten out some of these problems that we have in our society, is the fact that the economy is going to be very restrictive as a result of all the stuff that's been going on.
I absolutely agree. Like, for years now, for decades, companies have had a lot of slush money thrown at them by people with political agendas. Once the money starts becoming a little more scarce, I think that'll dry up awfully quickly.
Yep.
And make no mistake, we are, I am convinced we are in for a rough winter this year. The energy crisis is still ongoing. Russia is not going to play nice in winter. Already, the energy prices in Norway, parts of Norway, we have a 500+% increase in the cost of electricity.
I believe that, and I'm amazed that people were surprised that that Russia would take advantage of winter to in any way, shape, or form, because that's been like the entire way Russia has fought wars forever, be it economic or otherwise. I mean, winter has always been Russia's ally. So, yeah, this is gonna be a very, very interesting winter and especially for my friends in Europe. I really feel bad for them. They're really going to be struggling.
Germany has made its bed, and it is going to be fucked in it, as the old saying goes now. Like, the entire thing, like, they just finish dismantling all of their nuclear plants, and then they're still talking shit, and then Russia goes like, well, we're going to turn off the gas. And they're sitting there shocked, like, how could you do this to us?
Oh, so that wasn't a good
Apparently,
idea.
no one in Germany owned a history book.
Very much so.
If we become reliant on Russia, maybe they'll be nice to us.
It is the beauty of it. On the one hand, they're sitting there, Mr. Putin, you're the worst person ever. You're literally Satan. And he goes, I'm going to do something mean to you. Why?
Yeah. Yeah, those sanctions are going to dry up pretty quick when people start freezing to death.
On the bright side, as macabre as it sounds, like a couple of hard years and we will be rid of most of these politicians. Like the environmental parties in Germany will not be re-elected after one harsh winter. Student of history says, advice for aspiring creatives, because I know there must be a few people inspired by the good Sirs Ripper and Razorfist recent activities, but aren't quite sure where to start. Can't wait to see where things go.
You know, I don't think this should impede anyone from being creative. You need to understand what's going on in the marketplace, and I've been very vocal about that, and I appreciate you, Art, for having me on to talk about what's going on in the market. It's important that you understand that, but you know, there are places to go, and where you can express yourself creatively. There's publishers out there that support these products. You have to do a little bit of digging to find them, but you know, it's on the internet, and you know, I think that there's plenty of opportunities from what I've seen, especially when this started, and I've been reached out to by so many outstanding publishers. There's a lot of publishers out there who really don't care for all this woke stuff, and they're just in it to make money by actually producing content. And so this is actually a good time. You just need to watch where some of your favorite writers get their stuff published, and that's where you need to target, be it in the gaming industry or in fiction.
I do love the fact that we are back to, like, the age of bloodsucker capitalism sounds like a fairy tale now. Like, what? You just want to earn money? Jesus, that's a fresh and refreshing approach.
Almost innocent by comparison.
You know, for everybody that hates all of the stuff that has been happening, you know, there's a lot of publishers out there that really just I hate saying they're mercenary, but they're capitalists. They just want to make money. And that's great, because I'm into that too.
Yeah, and ironically, just making money is kind of what I want from my companies now.
Yeah.
Mark Ashamed says, here's a theory. Many are looking at the condition of the customer with mobile games and astonished at how willing the consumer is to subscription services. Now, many believe that because the consumer is so easy to control, it can be applied to everything. Well, yeah, we are living in a little bit of the age of the sheep, are we not?
Yes. Very much.
It's also because we have so many people have less of a connection to the thing. Like back in the day when there was only the core nucleus of the audience for Battletech, for 40K, for Star Wars, etc., you couldn't really get away with that much because the only people who were into it were the people who were, well, into it. Meanwhile, now there's a whole phalanx of consumers willing and happy to just swallow the latest Disney Plus show. and not think twice about it.
I sadly have friends who, when they watch movies and shows, they'd be like, I don't really think about it, or I don't want to really think about it. And I remember what was it? The Battle of Five Armies movie for The Hobbit. Like, my friend Mike and I were on the back, and we were sort of chuckling at the silly battle, right? As they make a hoplite sort of pike wall, and then they elves just hop over it. It's like, that's stupid. That's pointless. But a lot of people don't want to think about it. Like, they're like, oh, no, that's fine, though. That makes sense. It's like, no, it doesn't. Some of
Kind
us
of
want
elves, they hop.
smart
Yeah,
media.
I agree. I think Gibbs is onto something there. I think people go to gaming, they go to fantasy, they go to science fiction to escape a little bit, and I think we're going to get back to that. I think that's going to again be the mantra. But for now, you don't want to have to go through and kind of dissect some of this stuff because it does fall apart once you start doing it.
Mhm.
And this is from someone who just watched She-Hulk, so.
God help
Oh,
you,
not She-Hulk.
you poor man.
Yeah,
Glow in the Dark
there were
says they
parts of
would
it I thought
rather
that-
rule ruins than not be a ruler.
That's true. They would rather destroy the hobby for everyone, and or the genre. They would rather do that than actually have anybody there that had a dissenting voice. And if those are the people you want running your hobby, well, then you're going to get that kind of ruin eventually.
Better to rule in hell and all that.
Yeah.
Alex Hoffman says, hi, I hope you guys are doing well. I love listening to my favorite couple as I'm milking my cows.
What?
As I'm milking my cows.
Fair enough.
Is that a prostitute joke tied in there? I don't know.
I hope not. He's probably just a farmer. That's what we're going with.
On the
Okay,
other
I'm
hand,
gonna go with that because that's safe ground.
the mental image of a prostitute just jerking off some guy whilst listening to podcasts on the side is amusing.
I mean, this is the current year.
I really hadn't intended us to get caught up in this whole prostitution discussion.
It's only gonna get worse from here on out.
Modern
know.
technology. A miraculous thing indeed. Pedro Desant says, where should I start reading Battletech lore?
I always say start with Bill Keith's original series on the Grey Death Legion. They're in print again, and if you were going to go do, I know it sounds weird. You probably thought I was going to pump my own books, but that is always the best place I think to start. And from there's a lot of websites that'll tell you here's recommended reading, but I always say start with the original Grey Death Legion trilogy, which is set in 3022 or something. And that gives you a good basis for the universe, and from there you can go almost anywhere.
Well, there you have it. Valon says, one might even call those cancelled books unseen. Oh, I didn't do this thing.
Yeah, it is. We went through the unseen mechs during the Harmony Gold lawsuit period. The books haven't disappeared yet, but the author definitely is unseen now.
Flock says, could we see what if Alt Hist invited on to discuss history in the current world affairs? He's very knowledgeable about the cyclical nature of history. What if Alt Hist? Maybe. I'll have a look at him. Let's see. No, you can't have him because he's too large. I'm too small still. I must grow larger on this channel. See, if this was my main channel, maybe, because that's 250,000 subscribers. But here I am but a baby.
I don't want to hear that out of you.
What's that? Fetus?
You're like 10 times the size of me over here. I don't want to hear that.
Glow in the Dark. They already have a progressive church on California where they celebrate gender transition of kids. Progressive church. See,
You
again,
know, there's a
it's
lot of
gonna
weird
happen.
stuff in California. Yeah, California shouldn't be held up as an example ever.
The progressive church. Like, I would actually kind of love to talk to them and be like, okay, so how do you explain this and this passage of the Bible? Like here, for example, Jesus is beating people with a stick. It's like,
Need
well,
some
you see, you know,
gymnastics, mental gymnastics. Go.
like actually, we disavow Jesus. Okay, well,
Fair enough.
that is indeed rather progressive.
It's a very different version of the church, I suppose.
Meanwhile, the devil had many interesting points. Ah, it
Uh-oh.
all comes together.
What color is this church? Which direction is the cross facing again?
That is an interesting goat statue. Is that self-made?
It's a bit peculiar.
Progressive church. It's gonna happen. I know it.
That's what the Satanists are going to rebrand themselves as. God.
Petty Planet Missionary says the fact that we live in a society where fascist is treated with instinctive hatred yet communist isn't is a failure on our education system. It is. Well, honestly, our education system is useless. It was created in the 1800s, basically, and it is woefully outdated. The very fact you don't get taught basic shit that you need to know to exist, like how to pay your taxes, how to do a mortgage, how to rent out a house, it's dumb. Not to mention
How to write a check.
yeah, like philosophy, history, and social economical things should be at the top of it. Instead, you get to learn Pythagoras' theorem, like, this will be useful to me in my future life.
My son jokes with me at least once a year. He says, by the way, I'm another year older and I still haven't used algebra. And it's like, yep, sorry, but you had to take it. You know, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. System's broken, but we don't even know it yet.
I think, like, just a cursory glance at it will inform you that this is not fit for purpose, but again, it is an institution that has existed for a couple hundred years and is going to take a while to change. Let's see. Glow in the Dark says, in Germany, a woman was denied government benefits because she didn't want to work at a brothel, which is seen as legitimate work now, so she's going to be homeless. Like, I laugh, but again, that is so German. Like, yeah, so we found a job for you. Fantastic. When can I start? Well, it is a whorehouse. Like, oh.
I don't want to be a whore. It's like, well, are you saying you don't want a job? Okay. It's a bit fucked.
Very, very, Middle Eastern slave trade there, but very
You
well
know, the
Germany.
whole German, your body, not your choice. Quite literally.
The state has found a use for you, woman.
That's quite horrific. No pun intended.
Jesus Christ.
Well, they have a very busy winter chopping up furniture for firewood. So, you know, there's
I mean,
other
hey,
opportunities.
at least the impending energy collapse will open up many interesting job opportunities, I suppose.
Ooh, it's going to be an interesting winter in Europe. That's true.
Good God. Soul on the Lich says, look at the silver lining. Now Catalyst will go full wizards. You can win a game by misgendering your Up Force pilots or wearing a Blaine t-shirt.
I love that. That's funny.
There was a happenstance in 40k a while ago. There was a dude who showed up to a tournament who had registered his name as the Austrian Painter and was wearing a shirt with what was apparently some kind of Spanish fascist iconography. And 3 of his opponents forfeited rather than playing against him. So he was like, well, thank you.
You just won away with the prize, pretty much. Apparently, it's really just that simple. Offend your opponent and win.
I mean, hey, I would almost kind of enjoy that kind of sport. Like, just how do you win? Well, just be as offensive as humanly possible.
I think we just created a new game.
It would be funny
Yeah,
though.
what
Like a
way can you
GW
offend
convention tournament over there, you got a good dude in a Ku Klux Klan hood. Another guy's just carrying like aborted fetuses around his neck. He's like, okay, we're really getting into it now.
The high level of play here.
Commentators taking all of this very seriously. Like, yes, both of these contestants look really engaged.
I do like the fetus necklace. That's a very great move by Jim over there. It's a
Yeah, that's a
very
spicy
offensive
move there, Kibbs. Will it pay off?
You know, get into arguments. I'm offended by you. Oh no, I was offended by you first.
the offensive wars.
Begun, the offense wars have. Kai Sisk. Oh god, some of these names. Sai Sokisastar donates $2 and says, "Take this and make Kyle dance for my amusement." Well, Kyle,
That's $2, and I think the percentage I get's like not even $1. So good luck. It's gonna be a very short dance.
wiggles slightly in his chair.
That's all you get.
Anger on the Red Angel says, "That did happen. Some Black Library author went off calling fans fascist and people complained to GW and they were fired. Much ring was had over an Afrodike law, Aaron Bowden and Sig Marxism." Yes, I did see that. And again, like I made a video about it at the time, saying like, I don't think the dude should have been fired, but this is most assuredly a bit of his own making, so fuck him.
I mean, when you attack your own fan base, that's another thing. It's one thing to have your own politics. Of course, everybody's going to disagree, right? But then you lash out at the fandom. That's not a very good move. It's very short-sighted.
It is. Lord of the Bell Trident says, "Gary Gygax Jr. is working on an RPG called Giant Lands. I haven't looked into it yet." I did have a brief look at it. It was cancelled almost immediately because, what was it he said? He was on a podcast and he said something. Oh, what is it? Was it like? I don't even. It was something incredibly unoffensive too. It was like, "I think mostly men will play my game" or something, and that created the whole outrage. And he
Yeah.
got cancelled from a bunch of sponsorships and events and everything. It was not a good thing. God, this is a very idea. The son of Gary Gygax was cancelled from one of the largest D&D conventions because of words on a podcast. Like, yes, this is the future. Sigh.
Yeah, Gen Con, considering his father started Gen Con, what a slam.
Yep. Glow in the Dark says, "How can Norway have an energy problem? They are Saudi Arabia of the North. Is it more green energy regulations?" No, you see, like 8 years ago or so, our Worker Party government decided it would be a brilliant idea to set up a energy cable to Europe. And retardedly, the right-wing government, well, pseudo-right-wing, alt-progressive, shall we call them, that came in afterwards decided to not block this, and now we're sitting here with all of our energy being sold to Germany, which is currently freezing to death, and we've got nothing for ourselves. So energy prices skyrocket because there's not enough energy. Like, the Swedes are burning coal as quickly as they can to power our electric fucking cars. And well, here we are. There's not enough energy, and so it's ridiculously expensive. We've also had a long period of people resisting green energy buildups, because we could have a lot of water energy and wind energy in Norway, but the thing is, every time the proponents for this goes like, "We need windmills," then the government goes, "All right, can we build something near your house?" "No, not near my house. Like, it kills birds or something, don't you know?" Thomas Wayne says, "Arch, if you ever were to redo Sargon's low magic campaign, what base engine might you use besides 5th edition D&D?" I'd be half tempted to use the Warhammer one and just strip out the magic because I really like the D100s, just straight up percentage based systems. Maybe try Pathfinder. I have heard good things about it, despite the fact that its creators are woke as hell. See, Napalm Bonaparte says, I'm almost done with Blue Dawn. Great book so far. Former military and now LEO saying, great work.
Well, thank you. I think you'll enjoy the second book too.
Charles Dougherty, those calling things a failure in the educational system is a joke. It's operating exactly as intended, just like the Chinese language. It is designed to keep the commoner stupid. I am slightly worried that you might be right on that account, yes. We can't teach the populace philosophy and ethics because they might start to look at the ballot and go, hold on a second, I recognize these fuckers. They're the same people who screwed me over last time. Basadu Nephilim, I really appreciate Mr. Lee coming on to tell his side of the story. Don't think a lot of people would dare or bother.
Well,
so.
it wasn't an easy decision to speak out, but I think being quiet about it means that you're now part of the problem, and I'm not going to do that. I will probably speak out less about this over time. I'm going to be moving on, spending my time actually doing some writing, which is what I want to do. But I think it's wrong to be quiet about this and simply accept it as something that I don't have any influence or control over. So it wasn't an easy personal choice, but it's one that I made, and I stand by that decision.
Yep. No, it is definitely better to be vocal about it. It's the only way something will change.
Yeah. The fans deserve to know the truth.
They do. Doman says, hello, every pony. Sigh. Hi, Meredith, Arch, and Blaine. Kyle, your avatar is switching over to my side now. Pay me reparations.
They're getting their money's worth. It's cancer.
Valorn, Blaine, can you confirm that the Annihilator is in fact 4 urban mechs in a trench coat? Also, which mech do you think gets an undue bad reputation?
Which mech? Well, okay, I'm going to agree with you on the Annihilator. It just looks like a sperm cell that's lost its way in many respects. A giant one at that. But the mech that has a bad reputation or is wrongly perceived as such. Geez, there's so many. I really can't come up with one off the top of my head that I go, it's a good mech. I will say I like playing with the Hussar. It's a fast mech. It's one of them that I designed. Yeah, the thing's got toilet paper for armor, but it moves like all hell, and it can get behind the enemy and do sniping attacks that are great. You got to have the right player for something like that, and I've had a lot of people go, that mech's terrible. Somebody shoots at it and it starts falling apart, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not what it's designed to do. It's designed, for a specific mission. And I think there's a lot of mechs that fall into that category, that they're really designed for very specific missions and operations, and if you don't play them in that role, yeah, they get a bad rep.
There you go. Ilbram Harker, can Mr. Pardo run a game of Battletech at time of war?
I can run a game of Battletech. I'm going to be running some stuff, I'm thinking, in the near future, but it's going to be private. I don't want to do anything that's going to help Catalyst at this point. Me posting that I'm running Battletech, I think, sends a message that's inappropriate. So if I play, I'm going to keep it very private.
Probably a good idea. Artemis Fowl says, Mr. Pardo, what is it like being on a podcast with someone who has a brony avatar on Twitter? Cruel. Does his being a brony make total sense to you? Also, bronies don't dance, they prance.
You know, I don't have any problem with that community. I know a lot of people do. You know, my whole thing is the geek community has so many cool little subgenres. You know, you do you. I don't care. You know, as long as you're not doing anything that is illegal or immoral, you know, knock yourself out. It doesn't faze me that much. It's not something I seek to aspire to, but it's definitely, you know, there are times I kind of cringe at some of the weird stuff I see in various communities, but at the same time, you know, everybody's got to be able to express themselves.
That's true. Whatever you want to do is all right by me, so long as it doesn't hurt anyone. Glow in the Dark says, Blaine, what is your opinion on the urban mech? Obviously, the superior machine with excellent engineering.
I know everybody's got this love affair with the Irby. It's too slow for me most of the time, but it's, you know, it's good to, we mounted a trash can with some weapons and sent it out to go do some fighting, you know. It's, you know, everybody likes an underdog, and the urban mech is perfect for that role.
And last one, Marked Ashamed, just like tanks, the worst mech will win the battle when up against no mechs. That is true as well. Right, that concludes the little Streamlabs and Super Chats. So I think we'll begin wrapping it up there. So once again, Mr. Pardo, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It has been a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Art. You caught this story very early and did a lot to get the word out, and I sincerely appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on, and I'll wrap it up there. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again next week with another ArchCast. Till then, have a good day.